Thanks, Chris. Thank you all for joining me today and hearing a little bit about this research project that I've been working on here at AGI. So the exit survey was something that came out before I started working at AGI. There was concern that we didn't really understand our graduates and had trouble communicating with them after they finished graduating and didn't really know very much about the early career workforce. So this is the starting point to really answer some of these questions and get at some of these issues that were and concerns that were raised. So the purpose is really to understand the educational background, their post-secondary experiences, and their future plans after graduation. So there's a series of questions within the survey that look at their field experiences, their research experiences, if they took internships, asking about financial aid, asking about their supplementary coursework, etc., and then asking if they're headed off to grad school or if they're looking for a job. In 2011 and 2012, we ran 2 pilots, and really they were meant to test out the survey instrument and make sure that the questions were good and to start raising awareness of the project. And as you can see, in 2013 and in 2014, our number of responses went up pretty dramatically, and the number of departments that participated did as well. So I'm going to talk specifically about 2014, which was last year's data. So we had 688 responses from 163 different departments. So I presented the number of students at each degree level that participated, and it breaks down into these percentages. So I also have a map here showing the distribution of departments as well as the number of participants within each state. So we had, not surprisingly, a large participation from Texas and California, but we had a lot of departments along the East Coast that participated. We'd like to see more participation in the middle of the country, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, Wyoming, etc. But we feel like we have a pretty good distribution across the country of graduates from last year. You'll also see a breakdown of the institutions by their classification. This is the Carnegie Institute classification. So what you might be familiar as Research 1 or Research 2, they changed their classification system a few years ago into these categories. And so these are the percentages of students from these different institutions. And again, we got a pretty good distribution of types of institutions. And this is important because I will bring this up as we go through the presentation. So I'm not presenting all of the results from this survey. I'm just presenting a smattering of them. But hopefully it'll provide some insight on what we're trying to do, raise some questions, and encourage y'all to look at the report and look at the other data that's there. So first we're going to talk about who the 2014 graduates were. So here we have the gender breakdown. Pretty close to even when you put all the graduates together. A few more males in our bachelor's pool than females, but we did have 11% more females in our doctoral pool than males. I don't have the age distribution graph, but it was relatively expected with a very few number of graduates that were over 40. Nearly all of our graduates were also U.S. citizens. However, you will see on these pie charts the percentage of non-permanent residents or people from other countries that were graduating from U.S. departments. Also, most of our students are Caucasian. If you look at the percentage of unrepresented minorities, that includes African Americans, Native Americans, Native Alaskans, Native Hawaiians, and Hispanics. And I will say the Hispanic Latino population is the largest within that wedge. We also see a very wide range of degree fields that our graduates are completing. However, they tend to specialize, not surprisingly, as they move into higher level degrees. So a lot of our bachelor's graduates are geology students that, and then you see that percentage going down as the degree gets higher. So I said we asked about secondary coursework. So one of the questions that we asked was about their quantitative skills. And we asked about their quantitative skills, really not necessarily while working towards their degree, but across their educational background. So these are courses that they may have, if they're doctoral students, they may have taken during their bachelor's or master's, but they did take these courses. Most students did finish Calculus 1 and Calculus 2. However, you can see that there's quite a bit of a drop-off after Calculus 2, especially among bachelor's and master's students. We were also a bit surprised by the percentage of students that took statistics, particularly the doctoral students that took statistics, because I feel that statistics is kind of an important course and quantitative knowledge to understand when you're doing research, your own individual research. However, when I changed that data down to look at the type of institution, we saw something very interesting as well. The type of institution makes a difference on whether or not the course is available to the students. As you can see in the blue, the two blues, that's your basically your Research 1 and Research 2 institutions, your very high and high. And that's where the students that ended up taking courses beyond Calculus 2 were mostly taking them. And if you look at the dark green, that is the liberal arts institutions mostly. The percentages drop off pretty quickly there too. We asked about their background, if they took any earth science courses in high school, and if they attended a two-year college at some point. And we were also surprised to see that students are actually exposed to earth science, like a formal earth science course in high school. These percentages are a little bit lower than what we saw in 2013, but still comparable. And we see increasing percentages of students that attended a two-year college for at least one semester before transferring to a four-year institution. The percentages are higher than 2013 that are presented here, and we expect this trend to continue as we keep looking at the data. And actually 15% of the graduates overall have an associate's degree. So we asked questions specifically about field experiences, and we broke that down into three different type of field experiences. So we asked about field camp, and we defined that as a program, usually in the summer, 4 to 6 weeks long, where they would spend an intense time in the field learning skills associated to what you would learn at a field camp. We also asked about field courses, and that's where there's a field component that takes up about half of the course time in a course in your course, and then a field experience, which was any kind of extra field trip or field work that didn't actually fit in those other two categories. Nearly everyone had at least one field experience before they graduated, but there was varying percentages on field camps versus field courses versus field experiences. And I bring up this graph because we've been talking about how field camp has become, in geology and geoscience, an essential experience for students to gain necessary field skills. However, the opportunity may not be there for all students. As you can see, less than 30% of all the students, and I'm going to say that this is these percentages are dominated by bachelors because we had so many bachelor's graduates take the survey. So those students that came from master's college and liberal arts colleges, less than 30% ended up taking a field camp before graduating. We asked about research experiences, and I asked a few questions related to if they had any research experience and if they did work with faculty or if they did their own individual research. And much like the field experiences, just about everyone had a research experience. About 19% of bachelor's graduates did not have a research experience before graduating. And I bring up this image because this is the breakdown of those students that said that they did an individual research project, and it's broken down by finishing their undergraduate degree or finishing a graduate degree and by the methods that they may have used to do their research. And again, this highlights the specialization into other areas outside of geology as you get into a higher degree, but it also looks at the change in the methods that are used in students. I point out computer-based in particular because you see a much higher percentage of students finishing their graduate degree that did their research using computer-based methods than you do in the undergraduate degree. You also see a slight decrease in the number of graduates from a graduate degree using lab-based methods as well. We also asked about their internship experiences. And I find that this is becoming kind of a soapbox for me, because I know from my experience, my internships that I took were very important to my career and professional development. However, we find really high percentages, or I think they're high, of students that did not complete an internship before graduating. However, those that did, among those that did, 19% of the bachelor's graduates, 51% of the master's graduates, and 67% of the doctoral graduates that did complete an internship also found a job in geosciences. We find that this is an important and necessary experience to help with networking and skills development and understanding how the day-to-day work experience is, and kind of give students an idea of what they might want to do after they finish. And we'd like to investigate this further in the future. Okay, so we moved on to look at their future plans. And so this is the students that were planning on getting a graduate degree. So we have 42% of bachelor's graduates, 26% of master's graduates, and 2% of doctoral graduates were planning to go get another degree. Their interest in their fields is very varied, especially amongst the students graduating with an undergraduate degree. But what I think is interesting is amongst the students that finished a graduate degree and are planning to go get a second graduate degree, a lot of it is a second master's. And so I'm curious, and I don't have an answer to this because we don't ask this, but the motivation for going for that second master's degree. We also asked about if they were looking or had found employment in the geosciences. And so this is the breakdown of graduates that either found employment in the geosciences or we're still looking, but we're looking for a job within the geosciences. And this is the breakdown of industries where students have accepted a job within the geosciences. We see oil and gas has pretty high percentages amongst the bachelor's graduates and definitely amongst the master's graduates. And we know that about 28% of our graduates are pursuing a job in oil and gas, whether it's they found a job or they're still seeking, and that's across the board, 28%. This is a fairly dominant industry for the geosciences, and so we're actually really curious to see what the results appear for this year as we collect data. With the small economic downturn that the oil and gas industry had this year, we could see changes in these percentages amongst our graduates. We're not quite sure. You also see that there's a wide variety of industries that are accepting our bachelor's graduates, and it gets a bit more specialized, or smaller amount of industries in the master's and doctoral graduates, mostly because they know what they want to do after they finish or where their interests lie. But some of the other industries open up to bachelor's graduates, I think, is very interesting and something that could be explored further to provide information for our students on where to find jobs. We asked them about the resources that they found useful for finding these jobs, and by and large, they use their personal contacts to find jobs. But for the master's students in particular, those campus recruiting events were very helpful. You also saw some smaller influences from internet searches and faculty referrals and conference networking. But what I think this really shows is that we need to be teaching our students how to network effectively and to use those existing contacts to find the jobs that they're interested in. Here we have the locations of where they found jobs. So we couldn't really point it to city or zip code yet, but we can point it to states. Now, as we saw earlier, Texas had a large number of participants, but also we know that Texas has the highest number of geoscientists in the U.S. And we also, through AGI's Directory of Geoscience Departments data collection, We know that that Texas also has the highest number of undergraduate and graduate, highest number of students finishing degrees at the undergraduate and graduate level compared to every other state. So it's not entirely surprising that Texas would have the most number of graduates. I don't know the migration numbers, like if these are all native Texans or had their finished their degree in Texas, or if they came from other states. That's something to investigate in the future. But this graph is not too surprising on where the jobs are being found by the students. Wow, I talked really fast. But hopefully that allowed for some questions. I only have a couple more slides left. So the report for this data, the report for last year's data, they can be found at this website. All future reports will also be posted there as well. And the reports for the exit survey are free. So we encourage you to go onto the website, download the reports, read through them, and you're always welcome to ask me questions after this is over as well, after you've read through the full report. I am actually currently collecting data for this year. Data collection is going really well. I have a lot of departments that are sending it out. I've got some of the member societies involved, which is very exciting. And we are starting to go international this year as well. I have contacts in Canada and the UK, and we have translated the survey so that it works for their students. And they're going to start sending it out this year. We've made some changes to the survey so that we can get some more in-depth information about their mother or father's highest degree level. We're curious about first college students and how many of them there are. We're interested in the location of their high school, so we can really see the migration from high school to college to the job. We're also asking for specific information about where their internships are and where their jobs are. And finally, we're going to do some further investigation on internships. We're going to continue on and ask if they actually applied, how many applications there's not for internships, and how they found the calls for internships, to really kind of look at that question of why there's so few graduates that end up having an internship before they finish their degree. This survey is leading into a longitudinal survey to look at the early career workforce. So at the end of the survey, I ask if I can contact them again in the future, and so then we can track them through their first few years in the workforce and see what kind of jobs they land, look at their skills development, those kind of questions. And with more and more data, I can create really great visuals like this one that are very strong and data-driven. So what you see here is on the left-hand side, the degree field that students that found jobs finished their degree in, and then on the right-hand side, the industries where they found their jobs. What's really great about these ribbon diagrams is you can see how many students, you can see the different kinds of degree fields that are open for those kind of industries, and where the students end up going and with their degree field. So we want your graduates to participate if they aren't already. I know that there are some people that are on the line that already send this out to their students, which is great. But if your department is not, or if you want to make sure that your department is, feel free to email me. We do offer department benefits. We will give you the department data in aggregate. And if you'd like to add a few questions just for your students, we can accommodate that as well. And you also get the chance to get contact info for your graduates. We ask them if they're willing to share their contact info with you on the survey, and if they are, then we get email addresses and phone numbers. So if you ever needed to be in contact with your alumni, then you have that information. If you would like to fill out the survey, I have a link right here. It's a bit.ly that'll take you to the survey. The survey is open, and here's a token code that you can pass to your students. So you can pass them the survey link and the token code, or you can just email me and I can send all this information to you as well. So again, that was pretty fast, but now we can open the floor to questions.
Thank you, Carolyn. We do have a few questions that have come in. First one is, so how many of the new doctorate recipients went on to work at community colleges? Do you have any sense on that?
Let's see. That doctorates that went to go to community college?
Doctorates that went on to go take positions at community colleges.
Okay. We have two-year colleges as an option when they choose the industry that they found a job, and as you can see, I didn't have any doctoral graduates that went to a two-year college.
Okay. Within the survey, do you have the ability to track students who are pursuing, alternative geoscience to, careers like environmental law and policy, teaching, financial analysts, things like that?
Yeah, a section of the survey that I didn't present was we do also ask if they think that they're looking for employment outside of the geosciences. So that information is caught too. And it's subjective on whether they think it's a geoscience job or not. So some of that will show up in employment in the geosciences, but a lot of that will show up in employment not in the geosciences. For example, a lot of graduates that go on to be K-12 teachers don't consider themselves within the geosciences, and so, but we still capture that information because we also ask along with these questions who their employer is, where their employer is located, how much money their starting salary is, if they've got any additional compensation for their work. So I think some of that can be captured in the data that we're collecting.
Okay. And another question, of the 2% of doctoral students who went on for more schooling, are we just assuming that they went into a postdoc program? Is that what they're reporting?
They actually said they're getting another doctorate, but it may have just been a misunderstanding of the question.
Okay, so that would be something to clarify. Can you talk a little bit about, for schools that might be interested in this, as far as compliance with IRB issues, for departments?
Oh, okay. So this survey is IRB approved through the American Institutes for Research. So I have that paperwork and approval. And I know that there are some departments that were concerned about that. And typically when I passed on all that information, then it was fine. And I think the departments that were concerned about that went to their individual IRB boards just to double check, and they didn't have a problem with that.
Okay. Here's just a clarification question. When you talk about the research experiences and methods that folks had, do the percentages include multiple types of methods? So was someone allowed to select multiple methodologies for the research?
Yes, they were.
Okay. All right. And do you have any off the cuff sense about this percentage of students that took a geoscience course in the community college and ended up doing a degree? How does that compare to the national average as far as transition from a 2YC into a 4-year program?
Well, that's a good question. We asked them what their motivation for pursuing their geoscience degree and when they decided to major in the geosciences, and about 6% of undergraduate or students that finished their undergraduate degree decided that the geosciences was of interest while they were working on while they were in the 2-year college, and it's about 2% of master's students that decided that they wanted to major in the geosciences while at a 2-year college. I think those courses are very useful in creating interest, much like the intro courses, which is where we see a lot of our recruitment is at the intro course level. So I think the 2-year college, the geoscience courses taught in the 2-year college can be or should be considered very similarly to the intro courses as far as a recruitment course.
Okay. All right. On the future plans graph, shows that for undergraduates, 4% going into a 4-year college. Is that a matter that they took a job at their school as a tech, or is it in some other capacity, another degree or something like that?
That found a job?
Yeah. Do you have any sense what the actual disposition of those positions or activities were?
That 12%, yeah. I think some of that are technician jobs within the department.
Mm-hmm.
Some of that is student teaching or teaching assistantships and research assistantships while they're working on a degree, because they can all answer each set of these questions. So we do have some students that get a job or a part-time job related to the geosciences while working towards a degree.
Okay, all right. Is there any sense in the survey about when did students decide to major in geology and what their motivations are?
The majority of students choose to major in the geosciences during their first and second undergraduate year, or before they begin college. So the percentages turn out to be about 18% of bachelor's graduates, 23% of master's graduates, and 23%, I'm sorry, 27% of master's graduates and 23% of doctoral graduates that decide to major in the geosciences before college. And then similar percentages exist in the first year and second year of undergraduate. As far as the reasons why they choose to major, that's a write-in question, so I get a lot of different reasons. Many are related to the enjoyment of the field experiences, the enjoyment of being outdoors, the enjoyment of the material. Mm-hmm. However, we also see a lot of interest in career opportunities, desires to better understand Earth processes, the research experiences related to the geosciences, and a desire to make an impact on society.
Okay. So that's sort of our queue of questions. Anyone else have questions? If you'd like me to unmute you, just feel free to raise your hand as well. Click on the little hand icon. Do you want to make any comments, Carolyn, about what some key differences might be between in the translation of the U.S. survey into Canada or the U.K.? What are the challenges in that?
The biggest challenge we found transferring into for the British students was the changes in the field experience questions. It's a completely different question set for them because they have completely different metrics and ways that they introduce field skills than we do. So that was really interesting to look at. For example, let's see if I can find an example question. They're very concerned about, apparently UK students do a mapping project and have mapping instructions. There's a lot of questions related to this mapping project and how long they spent on it and the skills development through this mapping project. So that was the one thing that really stuck out with the British translation. Otherwise, it's pretty straightforward question for question. Now with the Canadians, there was the first issue with translating for Canadian students is that I had to provide a French survey. So that took a while to get a French translation of my survey and get it uploaded into the online survey instrument. However, again, it matches pretty well to what we have. I'm trying to think if there was something specific. I mean, Chris, do you remember anything specific for Canadians? I'm having trouble remembering.
No.
It matched surprisingly well. Both of them did, actually. I thought it was going to be more work for the comparability when we see the data, but the surveys look very similar.
Okay. Good. So any other questions from the audience? Again, happy to unmute you, or you can type in a question if you wish. Give everyone just a few more seconds. Okay, I guess not. So, And so we have a question about will the schools still receive individual summaries?
Yes. I was a little delinquent getting them out for this 2014 data. So there may be some people online that were like, oh, we got our data late. Yes. However, you will still continue to get your data. When I have help in the office, like an intern, that usually gets out a little bit faster, but that's still the plan, yes.
Okay. All right. So no other questions.
I will say, please jot down the survey link and token code so that your graduates can take the survey, or again, email me if you have any further questions.